Earth was no longer a fractured world of nations and borders. It had become Solara Primus, a unified empire ruled not by presidents or parliaments, but by a singular mind, Queen Olivia of House Virilion. Crowned at the age of 21 after the sudden death of her parents in the Titan Revolt, Olivia had ruled for over a decade with equal measures of grace and resolve. Her palace, the Sky Citadel, hung like a suspended cathedral above the cloud line, supported by anti-grav pylons of obsidian alloy. From its crystalline observation halls, she watched over a world that had once burned and now flourished under her unrelenting discipline. Cities shimmered with clean energy. The oceans breathed again. Artificial suns orbited the poles, thawing what the ice decay had once swallowed. But peace, like glass, was beautiful and fragile. That morning, Olivia stood before the Arch of Nations, a towering hollow obelisk constructed to honor humanity's survival through climate collapse, famine wars, and the Great AI Schism. She wore her ceremonial armor, silver white with golden threads that pulsed with nanotech veins. The Virilion crest, a phoenix rising from a crumbling globe, gleamed on her breastplate. Behind her, members of the Royal Council awaited her. Word, before her, a planet held its breath. "Activate full transparency," she commanded. The arch's display shimmered, revealing intercepted data. Streams of alien glyphs floated across the air. It wasn't the first alien transmission they'd caught, but this was different. "Origin?" Olivia asked, her voice calm but piercing. "Sector Zeta 9, beyond the edge of the Oort expanse," said Minister Dellis, her chief xenolinguist. "It came through the Lagrange PulseNet 6 hours ago. We ran it through all our decoders. It wasn't a greeting, Your Majesty. It was a warning." The message, translated, was brief. "Prepare for the reclamation. You were never meant to keep this world. We are coming." The chamber fell into stunned silence. General Cavron of the Royal Armature stepped forward, his synth arm gleaming. "We believe it's from the Morvani Concord, a nomadic war clan species we've only encountered in scattered mythologies and derelict probes. If they truly exist, their fleets could be weeks away, maybe days." Olivia's eyes narrowed. She stepped down from the dais, her voice unwavering. "How many of our planetary defense nodes are active?" 70%, Cavran answered. "But even with our orbital platforms and solar cannons, we're not built for an interstellar siege." "What about the lunar array?" "Offline. Since the Selenic riots. We never reactivated it." The Queen turned away from them, walking toward the arched glass wall overlooking the sky. Lightning flickered along the horizon like cracks in reality itself. In the reflection, her violet eyes glowed faintly, a genetic quirk or a divine curse, depending on whom you asked. She touched a control on her forearm. A translucent sphere appeared in the air, an ancient map displaying Earth's orbit and far beyond. "They want to reclaim Earth," she whispered. "As if we stole it." Dellis stepped forward, hesitant. Historian logs from the Ark archives mention a species that once seeded life on multiple planets, including ours. Could the Morvani be them? "Then let them come," Olivia said coldly, "and let them see what their children have become." But deep within her, something stirred, not fear, but a responsibility that stretched beyond empire, beyond crown. If the Morvani believed Earth was theirs by birthright, Olivia would need more than armies. She would need a plan that rewrote the very rules of war, and she would have to make impossible choices. For the first time in decades, the Queen of Earth felt the weight of something she hadn't faced since her coronation, uncertainty. But she did not flinch. "Summon the Silent Circle," she ordered. "We begin Project Etherfall." The night sky had changed. Queen Olivia stood alone on the high glass balcony of the Ether Citadel, Earth's governing tower that pierced the clouds like a silver fang. The air shimmered with ionic pulses, subtle, barely perceptible to the average citizen. But Olivia was no ordinary woman. With neural augmentation woven into her very thoughts, she felt anomalies like pressure in her bones. And, tonight, the sky pressed against her like it had a secret to whisper. The stars weren't blinking the same. A violet hue pulsed faintly at the edge of the stratosphere. It had first been dismissed as auroral distortion from Jupiter's magnetosphere. But Olivia had her doubts, and doubts, she'd learned, were often the first symptom of truth. She turned from the balcony, her cape flowing like liquid midnight behind her, and entered the upper chamber. The Council of 12, her advisory AI systems, hovered around a central core in the form of glowing monoliths, each dedicated to a pillar of Earth's society: defense, diplomacy, archives, science, energy, and more. "Begin diagnostics," she commanded. Her voice, crisp and poised, carried authority laced with urgency. The monoliths pulsed in reply. Defense: unidentified emissions have breached the solar filter grid. Origin: deep exozone, sector Chiron 6. Pattern unknown. Encryption: non-human. Archive: no historical record matches the current pattern. Nearest similarity: the Forgotten War of 3910. Probability of contact: 87%. A stillness settled into her lungs, not just a signal, a warning. "Patch me through to the vault," she said, referencing the off-limits historical repository buried beneath Mount Sinai, data from centuries past, most of which had been sealed away after Earth's shift to peace governance in 4601. Secrets were buried there. So were mistakes. As she waited, she paced through the illuminated hall. The walls displayed living history: her coronation, the rebuilding of ocean cities, the Mars annexation, the peace pact with the Europa colonies. She had ruled for 80 years without war. She was a symbol of rebirth, of logic over chaos. But this was something older than her reign, something ancient enough to have slept while humanity evolved. The vault answered. A hologram burst to life before her. A man, bearded, clad in a tattered fleet admiral's uniform from 3 centuries ago. His face was ashen, eyes frantic, a recorded message. "If you're seeing this, it means the stars have cracked open again. They come in, silence first, then song, then shadow. We called them the Choir of Knives. Their war isn't for conquest. It's for extinction. Ours." Do not answer the signal. But Earth had already answered. Back in the council chamber, the monolith labeled Science flickered. Reply has been transmitted. Source: unauthorized relay from Pacific Deep Array, likely civilian interference. Someone, somewhere, had tried to talk to the thing in the stars. Olivia's breath caught. Trace the sender. Seal all outgoing signals planet-wide, and prepare the Skyguard, she ordered, activating global planetary shields. Earth's sky will go dark for 96 hours. The Queen stared out again toward the sky. The stars no longer blinked. They burned. The violet pulse returned. Brighter now, closer, like a countdown. And in that moment, Queen Olivia realized this wasn't just a warning. It was a test. One humanity had failed once before. She would not let it fail again. The council chamber inside the spire of Concordia was usually a place of measured debate, ceremonial grace, and strategic vision. But tonight it pulsed with a nervous energy. Holograms flickered around the great obsidian table, displaying fragments of unknown ships detected on the edge of Neptune's orbit, jagged constructs of impossible geometry, emitting signatures that didn't match anything in known galactic catalogs. Queen Olivia stood at the head of the chamber. The luminescence of the star dome above her bathed her silver coronet in light, casting long shadows across her sharp, elegant features. Her violet eyes, clear and commanding, studied the projections not with fear, but with unflinching resolve. "They are not Terran," whispered High Strategos Leora. voice hushed with awe and dread. "Their vessels don't obey known propulsion laws, and they haven't responded to contact attempts." Olivia nodded slowly. "Because they didn't come to talk." A tense silence filled the room. The mysterious fleet had appeared just 12 hours ago, first as a ripple in the orbital surveillance grid, then as a series of cold, calculated intrusions into the outer system's defense lattice. No weapons had been fired yet, but the intent was clear in their trajectory. They were approaching Sol. They were approaching Earth. "They bypassed the Jupiter defense ring in minutes," said Admiral Terran, his normally calm demeanor fraying. "Our long-range drones were sliced apart by energy signatures we don't even have names for." "What do we know about their shape?" Olivia asked, her voice cut through the fear like a blade. One of the analysts expanded a projection. The enemy ships resembled elongated spires, spiraling with impossible edges, as if space itself bent awkwardly around them. Shifting patterns of dark light moved across their hulls, giving the illusion that they breathed. Living weapons from the void. "Their configurations change when scanned," Leora said, "almost like they're aware." Olivia's mind raced, not with panic but calculation. This enemy was unlike the rogue colonies or failed AIs she had crushed during her early reign. These intruders came from beyond known space. They hadn't been born in stars like humans. They had emerged from something colder, older, perhaps even hungrier. "Have we traced their origin?" she asked. "Their point of emergence appears to be beyond the Oort drift," the analyst replied. "We picked up something there, a rift. Like a wound in space-time, then the ships came through." "Not ships," Olivia whispered. "Scouts." Everyone turned to look at her. "I believe what we've seen is only a fragment of what lies on the other side of that tier," she continued. "This is a test, a probing. And if we fail to respond with something they haven't calculated, Earth will be gone in days." No one argued. "Bring up the Arcanes protocol," she commanded. Her advisors stiffened. "That protocol was buried, unethical, forbidden," Leora said. "You mean to use the Sky Shard?" Olivia's eyes narrowed. "It was forbidden for political reasons, not strategic ones." A hush fell. The Sky Shard was a theoretical weapon, a planetary-scale construct hidden beneath the mantle of Earth's moon. A last resort, one whose very activation could fracture Earth's tectonics. Its ignition required the Crown's override, the touch of the monarch. "I will go to the lunar vaults myself," Olivia said. "I will face the consequences. But we must show this enemy that Earth will not surrender. Not to them, not ever." She turned away, her cape whispering behind her like silk in the wind. The council chamber was silent as she left. Only the stars above seemed to flicker nervously, watching, waiting, as the first real queen of Earth in centuries walked into legend's mouth once again. Outside, the alien ships inched closer, and the void between stars held its breath. The journey from Earth's command center to the lunar vaults was one shrouded in silence and anticipation. Olivia stood alone in the sleek silver shuttle, its thrusters humming faintly as it pierced the void between the blue planet and its somber satellite. Outside the viewport, the Earth spun with haunting beauty, a fragile sphere of life, now teetering on the edge of annihilation. Her heart, steady, through countless battles and political storms, beat faster with each mile closing on the moon. The Sky Shard was no myth. It was real, a weapon of devastating power buried beneath the lunar surface, its activation guarded by layers of protocols and, most importantly, by her own will. As the shuttle touched down on the barren plains of the Sea of Tranquility, Olivia's mind raced through every lesson learned from history. The cost of using such a weapon was not just measured in enemy lives, but in the very survival of Earth's own delicate balance. To awaken the Sky Shard was to gamble with extinction, Trist, but It was a gamble she was willing to take. The hatch hissed open, releasing a burst of recycled air into the sterile moon atmosphere. Olivia stepped out, her silver cloak catching the faint glow of Earthlight. The lunar surface stretched endlessly, dust kicked up underfoot as she made her way toward the hidden entrance, carved into a jagged ridge. The vaults were a marvel of forgotten technology and ancient secrets, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers reinforced by alloys unknown to modern science, shielded against the void's merciless radiation. Olivia's steps echoed softly as she descended into the cold heart of the moon. Ahead the command console awaited, a monolith of black crystal fused with pulsating circuitry, its interface dormant but humming with latent energy. The Sky Shard. Her fingers hovered above the activation panel, hesitation flickering in her violet eyes. Memories of her people, her kingdom, and the fragile planet she vowed to protect surged within her. To press this button was to cross a threshold, from ruler to reckoner. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her peripheral vision. From the shadows emerged Lieutenant Kyle, her trusted aide and confidant. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "we intercepted a transmission. The Invaders. They're preparing to strike the outer colonies. Time is running out." Olivia nodded, steeling herself. "Then we have no choice. Prepare the system. I will not watch Earth fall while I stand idle." With a deep breath, she pressed her palm against the crystalline surface. The vault awoke with a shudder, circuits glowing. With fierce light, ancient machinery stirring after centuries of slumber. The Sky Shard's core thrummed, a pulse that reverberated through the moon and, faintly, all the way to Earth. Outside, the stars beyond the lunar horizon seemed to flicker, as if sensing the awakening of a force both terrible and necessary. Olivia whispered to herself, "For Earth, for all we've built." The path ahead was uncertain and perilous, but the Queen of 4731 would face it unflinchingly. The war for Earth had truly begun. The Sky Shard's awakening sent ripples not only across the moon, but deep into the heart of Earth's defense networks. Olivia's decision had ignited a beacon of hope for some, and a beacon of dread for others. Back in Earth's capital, the Ihar, sprawling city of Nova Arcadia, shimmered beneath a cerulean sky, its towers stretching like silver needles toward the heavens. The city had been a symbol of human triumph and innovation for centuries, but today it felt vulnerable, as if the very air hummed with impending conflict. Olivia returned from the lunar vaults, her expression unreadable, cloaked in the weight of her choice. The council awaited her in the high chamber, men and women of influence and power, their faces etched with concern and skepticism. The great hall was vast, its walls adorned with murals of past victories and sacrifices. The council's murmurs ceased as Olivia entered, every eye fixed on the queen who carried the burden of Earth's fate. "Your Majesty," began Chancellor Merrick, a seasoned diplomat with sharp gray eyes, "activating the Sky Shard risks catastrophic consequences. We must consider alternatives before unleashing such power." Olivia's gaze swept over the gathered leaders. Alternatives have been exhausted. The invaders strike swiftly and without mercy. Our colonies fall one by one. This weapon is our final deterrent, a warning that Earth will not bow. A ripple of tension surged through the room. Some nodded, their faces hardening with resolve. Others clenched fists, fearful of the unknown cost. Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the far end of the hall. A young envoy, breathless and wide-eyed, hurried forward. "Your Majesty, sensors detect massive enemy fleets emerging from the Helios Rift. They advance faster than anticipated." Whispers turned to gasps. The Helios Rift, a volatile tear in space-time near Earth's orbit, was thought to be impassable. Now it served as the staging ground for an armada unlike any seen before. Olivia's jaw tightened. mobilize all defensive squadrons, send evacuation orders to the outer colonies, and prepare the Sky Shard's targeting systems. We may not get a second chance. As the Council scrambled to issue commands, Olivia slipped away to the observation deck, a glass platform suspended high above the city, offering an unbroken view of Earth's skies. She stood alone, watching as distant flashes marked the approach of warships, alien silhouettes growing larger, more menacing. The invaders had arrived with overwhelming force, their intent clear: conquest or annihilation. Yet amid the chaos, a flicker of determination burned within Olivia. The queen who had once ruled a peaceful world now faced a crucible that would define her legacy. She would not let Earth fall into shadow. Her voice was barely a whisper as the first volleys lit up the void. For Earth, for our future. Below her, Nova Arcadia braced itself. The final war had begun. The morning light was swallowed by the encroaching darkness of war. Nova Arcadia, once a beacon of peace and prosperity, now stood as the last bastion of humanity's survival, a glittering jewel surrounded by a cold void filled with hostile shadows. From her command throne in the Citadel Tower, Olivia watched. The holographic battle map flicker and pulse, each icon representing ships, squads, and fleets engaged in a deadly dance. The invaders, an unknown alien force dubbed the Veilborn by her intelligence officers, pressed their siege relentlessly. The city's outer defenses, a lattice of shimmering energy shields and orbital cannons, held firm but strained under continuous assault. Explosions echoed like thunder through the steel canyons of Nova Arcadia, shaking its foundations and igniting fires in the lower districts. Olivia's piercing green eyes scanned the tactical displays, absorbing reports from her commanders. Her breath was steady, but her heart hammered with the weight of responsibility. "Commander Reyes," she called to the grizzled veteran at her side. "What is the status of the Sky Shard battery? Are we ready to deploy if necessary?" Reyes nodded grimly, his scarred face lit by the cold glow of his datapad. "The Sky Shard is primed, Your Majesty. The targeting matrix is calibrated, but the energy draw could cripple our own systems if fired indiscriminately. We hold it as a last resort." Olivia's jaw clenched. The Sky Shard was both their greatest hope and most dangerous gamble. A weapon capable of unleashing an energy blast so vast it could obliterate an entire fleet in seconds. But the collateral damage was unknown. Could she risk destroying the city she swore to protect? Suddenly, an alert flashed. A breach in the southern perimeter. "Enemy boarding parties are infiltrating the lower quarters," shouted a junior officer. "They're targeting the power grid. We could lose our energy shields within the hour." Without hesitation, Olivia rose from her throne, her voice sharp and commanding. "Deploy the Arcadian Guard to the southern sector. Seal all access. Points and hold the line at all costs. I want every citizen evacuated from the vulnerable districts immediately." The council chamber erupted with activity as plans were dispatched and emergency sirens wailed across the city. Olivia felt the weight of every life in her hands, every decision a balance between sacrifice and survival. Minutes later, she found herself in the war room, surrounded by her most trusted advisors. The air was thick with tension and the acrid scent of recycled oxygen. "Your Majesty," began Admiral Kai, the fleet commander, "our fighters are struggling to contain the Veilborn's drone swarms. They adapt quickly, outmaneuvering our defenses. We need new tactics." Olivia thought fast. "Use the experimental EMP pulse drones. They disrupt electronic systems temporarily, but require precise deployment." Kai nodded. "We'll prepare them immediately." As preparations unfolded, a quiet moment settled over the room. Olivia's mind drifted briefly to her people. Families huddled in shelters, children clutching memories of a peaceful past, soldiers fighting not just for survival, but for a future. A sharp chime brought her back. The tactical display revealed a new threat. A massive Veilborn flagship bristling with weapons, was warping directly toward the city's core. "Is that the enemy command ship?" she asked, voice low. "Yes." "Your Majesty," replied Reyes, "if it reaches the power nexus, the entire city could fall into darkness." Olivia's gaze hardened. "Then we end this now." She activated the Sky Shard's control panel, fingers trembling with a mix of fear and resolve. The weapon hummed to life, energy surging like a storm contained. "Fire on my command," she ordered. Outside, the city braced, moments stretched into eternity. Then, a blinding beam of pure energy erupted from the Sky Shard, slicing through the void like a celestial spear, striking the flagship with devastating force. The flagship exploded in a cascade of fire and debris, its fleet faltering as the signal of defeat rippled through their ranks. Cheers erupted in the war room, but Olivia remained still, eyes shadowed. Victory was theirs. But at what cost? The siege had only just begun. The sky above Nova Arcadia, once ablaze with the fury of war, now lay heavy with smoke and ash. The city's shimmering towers stood scarred but unbroken, monuments to a people who refused to surrender. Yet victory had not come without a price. Olivia walked slowly through the shattered streets of the lower quarters, her regal posture softened by exhaustion. The glow from flickering fires cast twisted shadows across crumbling walls and shattered glass. The air smelled of burnt ozone and dust, a bitter reminder of the conflict that had almost consumed them. Around her, medics and engineers rushed to tend the wounded and repair critical systems. Citizens moved cautiously, their faces etched with disbelief and grief. Mothers clutched children tightly. Survivors whispered prayers for those lost. A young lieutenant approached, his uniform smeared with grime and blood. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing briefly, "the power grid is stabilizing. We've regained partial control, but the Veilborn sabotage left lasting damage. Some sectors may remain offline for days." Olivia nodded, eyes scanning the devastation. "We'll rebuild. We must. The city depends on it." Her mind raced with questions no one dared ask aloud. Who were these Veilborn? What did they want with Nova Arcadia? And how had they managed to strike so deep into their defenses? That night, Olivia convened an emergency council in the heart of the Citadel. The war room's holographic displays flickered with real-time data, star charts, enemy movements, and reports of scattered skirmishes along the city's borders. "We cannot afford complacency," she said, her voice steady despite the weight pressing on her shoulders. "The Veilborn have shown they are ruthless and cunning. If we do not understand their motives, we risk losing everything." Dr. Kellen, the kingdom's foremost xenologist, leaned forward. "Your Majesty, our initial scans indicate the Veilborn hail from a dark star system beyond the shattered expanse. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered, organic and synthetic. Elements fused in ways that defy our physics." A murmur rippled through the room. "They are not merely invaders," Kellen continued. "They are a collective consciousness driven by a singular purpose, survival through domination." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Then we must find a way to disrupt that purpose." Suddenly, an alert blared. A new transmission intercepted from Veilborn frequencies crackled through the speakers. A cold, mechanical voice offering terms of surrender or annihilation. Her heart skipped. This was no ordinary enemy. "We must respond carefully," Olivia said, the weight of diplomacy pressing down. "This is not just a battle for territory. It is a battle for the very soul of our world." As the council dispersed to prepare for the next phase of this cosmic conflict, Olivia remained, staring out over the city. The fires of war had dimmed, but the shadows they cast were long. In the quiet moments, she whispered a vow to the night. No matter the darkness ahead, Nova Arcadia would not fall, and neither would she. The days following the intercepted message passed in a tense, restless blur. Nova Arcadia's people, though battered, steeled themselves for what was to come. Olivia moved with purpose, knowing that waiting was a luxury they could not afford. The Council's focus shifted to a daring plan, to infiltrate the Veilborn's network, to strike not just at their armies, but at the core of their collective mind. If they could sever the link that bound the Veilborn together, they might shatter their unity and end the threat once and for all. Olivia stood in the command chamber of the Citadel, surrounded by her most trusted advisors and operatives. The holographic star map glowed above a circular table, pinpointing the Veilborn home system, a swirling black star orbited by dark moons, hidden within a nebula of eerie violet gas. This is where the Veilborn collective consciousness anchors, explained Dr. Kellen, voice heavy with both awe and dread. The heart of their hive mind. Destroy it, and their forces will become disorganized, vulnerable. Olivia's gaze hardened. Then that's where we go. A murmur of hesitation rippled through the room. The mission would be perilous, infiltrating enemy territory deep in the shattered expanse, beyond any known safe routes. Commander Ryland, battle-hardened and loyal, stepped forward. With your permission, Your Majesty, I will lead a strike. Team, we'll deploy stealth vessels using the latest quantum cloaking tech. We'll have a narrow window to breach their defenses. Olivia nodded solemnly. Prepare your best. This mission carries the fate of our world. The next hours were a whirlwind of preparations. Olivia's mind raced between strategy and emotion, knowing the risks her people and her own soldiers faced. Yet she held firm, embodying the strength that had made her the heart of Nova Arcadia. On the day of departure, Olivia stood on the Citadel's highest balcony, watching the fleet gather. Sleek, shadow-black ships hummed with energy, their hulls shimmering faintly under the pale twin moons. Her eyes caught the horizon, where the nebula swirled like a living entity. Beyond it lay the Veilborn's dark home, a realm of shadows and whispered horrors. Commander Ryland approached, armor gleaming. "We won't let you down, Your Majesty." She placed a hand on his shoulder, steady and sure. "Bring hope back to this world." As the fleet slipped silently into the void, Olivia's thoughts lingered on the unknown dangers awaiting them. The Veilborn were unlike any foe she had faced, a fusion of mind and machine, relentless and alien. But within her burned a fire no darkness could quench, the will to protect her people, to save her planet. And as the stars swallowed the fleet, so too did they swallow the last hope for peace. Yet in the depths of that vast cosmic silence, Olivia's spirit remained unbroken, a beacon against the gathering night. The heart of the Veilborn awaited, and so did the storm. The quantum cloaking shimmered faintly as Commander Ryland's strike team drifted through the swirling violet mists of the nebula. The Veilborn home system loomed ahead, a haunting constellation of blackened moons orbiting the ominous dark, star at its center. It was a place untouched by light, a graveyard of ancient energies that whispered secrets only the Veilborn could understand. Ryland's voice cut through the ship's comms, low and steady. All units maintain silence. We approach the core. Sensors are detecting layered defense grids. We'll have less than 10 minutes before they activate full countermeasures. Inside the stealth vessel, Aegis, the atmosphere was taut with focus. Olivia's chosen operatives sat ready in their seats, neural links primed for the mental interface needed to navigate the Veilborn's psychic defenses. The mission was unlike any physical assault. It was a battle of minds, of wills, of deep-rooted consciousness. Lieutenant Mara, the team's psychic specialist, stared at the swirling data streams projected in front of her. Her fingers moved, in fluid motions, weaving through layers of the Veilborn's hive mind like a delicate dance, probing for vulnerabilities. "There's a core node, heavily shielded but not impenetrable," she whispered. "If we can inject a viral code here, we can disrupt the collective link." The Aegis slipped closer, ghost-like, evading detection by bending light and warping space around its hull. The nebula's mist thickened, tendrils of violet fog curling like living things around the ship. Suddenly, the eerie silence shattered. A surge of psychic energy exploded across the neural interfaces. The Veilborn were aware. Ryland barked orders. Evasive maneuvers, deploy counter-hacking protocols. Mara, focus on maintaining the viral payload. The ship rocked violently as unseen forces slammed against its defenses. Psychic screams echoed. In the minds of the crew, the Veilborn's mental assault, a tempest of alien rage and relentless cohesion. Olivia gritted her teeth, gripping her console. She could feel the pressure inside her mind, the tug of the Veilborn's consciousness, trying to worm its way in, to unravel her thoughts, to shatter her resolve. But she was not alone. A pulse of warmth and clarity from Mara's mind link steadied her. Together they pushed forward, driving the viral code deeper into the core. Suddenly, alarms blared. The defense grids faltered. The hive mind shuddered. But then, the core responded. From the darkness emerged the Veilborn Queen, a towering figure of shimmering shadows and pulsating energy, her form shifting between physical and ethereal. Her crimson eyes burned with ancient fury. "You dare invade our sanctum?" Her voice was both many and one, echoing through the minds of the strike team. Ryland squared his shoulders. "We fight for our world's survival. We will end your invasion." The psychic battle erupted anew, a tempest of wills clashing in the void. Minds intertwined, tearing through layers of perception, memories, and primal instinct. Olivia summoned every ounce of strength and clarity, reaching out through the psychic. Stormed to the Veilborn Queen's mind. "Why wage this war? There can be peace." The Queen's rage flickered, replaced by a brief, inscrutable sadness. "We were driven by survival, as you are. But our unity is our strength." The viral payload detonated within the hive mind's core, fracturing its cohesion. A blinding pulse surged outward. The Aegis shuddered violently as psychic chains broke and the Veilborn forces scattered in disarray. Ryland grinned fiercely. "We've done it! Now, retreat!" As the strike team pulled back, the nebula seemed to pulse with a strange new rhythm, as if the Veilborn's collective consciousness was healing, but forever changed. Back on Nova Arcadia, Olivia allowed herself a rare moment of hope. The battle was far from over, but the tide had turned, and somewhere deep in the darkness, the Veilborn Queen retreated to rebuild, her crimson eyes burning with the promise of a reckoning yet to come. The weight of destiny pressed heavily on Olivia's shoulders as she stood atop the gleaming spires of Empira's capital. The sky was a restless canvas of swirling storm clouds, lightning etching jagged scars across the heavens, as if the very universe itself trembled before the coming conflict. The Veilborn threat had grown exponentially, no longer a distant menace, but an imminent cataclysm. Entire star systems had fallen, swallowed by the relentless hive mind that sought to assimilate all life into its cold embrace. Now Empira itself was the final bastion. Olivia's piercing eyes scanned the War Council chamber, where generals, scientists, and advisors gathered, their faces etched with a blend of dread and determination. Among them, her closest confidant and strategist, Commander Ryland, stood, ready, his jaw clenched in grim resolve. "We have one chance," Olivia said, voice steady but laced with urgency. "The Veilborn's hive mind depends on the core nexus aboard their flagship, the Umbral Heart. Destroy that, and their psychic link will collapse. We sever the head, and the body will falter." The room was silent, the enormity of the plan sinking in. Ryland stepped forward, eyes locking with Olivia's. "The Umbral Heart lies deep within the Veilborn Nebula, shrouded in psychic mists that scramble our sensors and assault our minds. A direct assault is suicide." Olivia nodded. "Which is why this mission falls to the Aegis strike team. Mara's psychic abilities are our only hope to breach their defenses. Outside, Empira's fleet prepared for war. A dazzling array of starships gleaming under the planet's twin suns, engines humming with latent power. Yet the most potent weapon was Olivia herself, the Queen, whose very presence inspired hope. Amid despair, hours later, aboard the Aegis, the atmosphere was taut as the team plunged into the heart of the nebula. Tendrils of violet mist curled like spectral serpents, distorting reality and gnawing at their minds. Psychic whispers slithered through the crew's thoughts, fragments of the veil-born consciousness, reaching out to claim them. Lieutenant Mara sat poised in the neural interface chamber, her fingers weaving intricate patterns in the air, channeling ancient mental disciplines taught in the secretive archives of Empira. Sweat beaded on her brow as she delved deeper into the psychic labyrinth. Suddenly, a jarring pulse rocked the ship. "The hive mind knows we're here," Raylan said, voice tight. "Brace for assault." An invisible storm crashed against their neural shields, visions of endless voids, screams of lost souls, the chilling embrace of oblivion. Olivia closed her eyes, summoning every ounce of willpower to anchor herself. Within the psychic maelstrom, a figure emerged, tall, fluid, a swirling form of shadows and glowing red eyes. The veil-born Queen. Her voice resonated in their minds. "Mortal fools, you trespass in the sanctum of eternity. You cannot comprehend the unity you defy." Olivia's thoughts burned bright with defiance. "We fight not for conquest, but for survival. Empira will not bow." The battle of wills ignited, a tempest of psychic fury, minds clashing like celestial storms. Memories, fears, and raw power surged through the neural networks. Mara's viral code pierced the nexus, fracturing the hive's cohesion. The veil-born Queen roared, a soundless scream that reverberated in every neuron. The Aegis lurched as the hive mind's grip faltered. As the Aegis withdrew, the nebula shuddered, the once impenetrable veil dissolving. The strike team was battered, but victorious. Olivia stood on the command deck, gaze steady, heart aflame. The cost was high, but hope endured. Empira's fate hung in the balance, and its queen was ready to face the dawn. The crucible of shadows had been crossed, but the war for the soul of the galaxy was far from over. The storm over Earth's upper atmosphere had taken on a different hue, no longer the dark, roiling swirl of an invasion, but a bruised, radiant expanse torn open by war and sacrifice. Queen Olivia stood at the prow of the Astrid throne, her armor scorched, her once gleaming crown cracked at the center. The battle had left its mark on everything, on the world, on the skies, and most of all, on her. But there was no time for grief. She watched the remnants of the Kairos Armada drift. In fiery ruin, their engines cold, their hive structures shattered. The final blow had been hers, when she had activated the Singularity Core aboard the enemy's lead ship, folding it into itself with a scream of light. It was a gambit meant to kill her, but something else had happened, something she couldn't explain. She lived. Her return through the collapse of quantum space had been seen by her soldiers as a miracle, but Olivia knew better. When she had emerged, she heard a voice, deep, feminine, echoing through her bones. Your world was never meant to end, not yet. Now she walked through the halls of the new citadel, built atop the ruins of the old, one her presence leaving trails of soft static in the air. Technology whispered around her like birdsong, systems aligned. Walls shimmered with recognition, and the very metal underfoot seemed to obey her pace. She was no longer just ruler of a world, she was a symbol of survival. Her advisor, High Matron Varel, approached with wide, reverent eyes. "Your Majesty, reconstruction reports are favorable. The equatorial cities have power again. The sky barriers are being rebuilt. The survivors have begun to plant." Olivia nodded, but remained silent. "There is another matter," Varela continued, voice quieter. "The voice you mentioned when you returned, are you still hearing it?" The Queen looked past her, toward the rising sun above the shattered horizon. "Not with my ears. And what does it say now? Olivia turned. Her eyes, once sapphire blue, now shimmered with shifting silver. That the Kiros were not the end, they were the beginning. That we've touched something ancient, and it has noticed us. She descended the staircase of the citadel into the courtyard, where soldiers and citizens alike gathered. Silence spread like wind over grass as they looked upon their sovereign. She raised one hand, and above it a symbol of burning white light ignited. A new emblem, one born not from monarchy but from fire, blood, and renewal. A sigil forged in the dying breath of the Kiros queen, and reborn through Olivia's survival. "This world is not broken," she declared, voice thunderous yet calm. "It is reforged, and I will not rule it from a throne of comfort, but from the front lines of its future." A child in the crowd whispered, "She's not just our queen anymore. She's our shield," said another. "No," said Varel softly, "she's our star." Far above them, unseen by any telescope or sensor, a deep pulse echoed from a dark corner of the universe. Something vast stirred, something ancient and watching, and as Earth began to heal, Queen Olivia prepared not for peace, but for whatever came next. For she knew now, ruling a world was easy, saving it was survival, but leading it beyond its known edge, that was destiny.